So thank you all for taking the time to be here today and contributing to our initiative. I think I speak on behalf of all members of FBR when I was stating that we very much appreciate it. So if we could just go around and have our interviewees introduce ourselves. So Raymond, would you like to start?
Absolutely. I'm Raymon Burton, and I'm the executive director at One Refugee. And yeah, we'll be talking more about what that means here in just a minute. So happy to be here.
My name is Danielle. A student graduate from Boise State, majoring in civil engineering. And then I've been in the United States for 7 years. I came in as a refugee. And I'm currently working for DEA as a roadway and highway engineering designer. And I'm one refugee beneficiary.
Yeah, my name is Emanuela Shakina. I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I call myself an alumni of the One Refugee because I recently graduated from the University of Utah with a marketing degree. I currently work with Wells Fargo, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you all so much. And Emma, congratulations on recently graduating. That's so exciting. So I'm just going to go ahead and give a quick layout of what the interview is going to look like. So I'm just going to go ahead first and give a brief description of our project. And then I'm going to go into Raymond, your questions specifically, and then followed by questions for Emma and Danny. And then we'll end with a short Q&A if that's fine with everyone. So to begin, the University Alliance for Refugees and At-Risk Migrants Student Voices for Refugees Network is a coalition of students and professionals working to create a more accessible and welcoming higher education environment for students affected by forced migration. Over the course of the 2020-2021 school year, SBR members are working to launch a public education campaign to help members of the U.S. university community, from university presidents to student leaders, expand higher education pathways for forcibly displaced students. Right now, we're conducting research on two key avenues, mentorship and scholarship. On World Refugee Day, June 20th, 2021, we plan to publish a research-driven toolkit for action, which we hope will serve as a foundation to implement best practices at U.S. universities and colleges in the coming years. So that's a little bit about our project. I guess we could just go ahead and start with questions for Raymond. So Raymond, please begin by describing the scholarship program in detail, specifically how it operates and the services it provides to participants.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jordan. So One Refugee started back in 2014, and we started primarily as a scholarship program, and it has since morphed into a much bigger program where financial assistance is just a component of many things that we do. But students who enroll in our program come from a refugee background, and they have to be already accepted into a higher education institute. And from the get-go, they're assigned an education manager who works directly with them from our team, who meets with them monthly to make sure that they're doing well, that they're making progress on their academic plans. Then they work with them to develop a progress plan and to start moving forward and make sure they're connected to all the resources that are available on campus. So connect with their academic advisor, know about all of the resources, including tutoring, everything that's available on their college campus. And then through those conversations, they also start to develop a plan in terms of their professional development and connecting with professional mentors, learning how to network, and all of those things. So when it comes to, we'll talk a little bit later kind of more about the financial piece, but we also do provide financial assistance for participants in our program. And we typically stay with a student from the moment that they enroll in our program all the way through graduation, as long as they meet our requirements.
Great, thank you so much. And then my next question, as you know, is your organization has three pillars: academic mentoring, professional development, and financial assistance, which you touched on briefly. Could you explain these three facets of the program and why this approach has been adopted?
Absolutely, yeah. So the academic mentoring piece, we don't try to kind of reinvent the wheel or pretend to be academic advisors because we're not on the college campus, we're not hired by the university or the college, but we do provide some academic mentoring. And a really big component of that is exploration. and helping students understand that there are a lot of opportunities out there for them. A lot of our students come with different expectations about higher education in terms of kind of a siloed, very limited approach to their like 3 different things I can do. And so a huge part of what we do with the academic mentoring piece is meet with our students monthly, provide them with opportunities to go out and explore and see what the different opportunities are for them professionally and in terms of what they can study. And so that's really what we do at the academic mentoring side of things. Now, when I came on board, I came to One Refugee in 2017. And when I looked at the data of our graduates at that time, it was interesting to note that although a lot of our graduates were graduating with awesome degrees from universities, that many of them were underemployed or unemployed. And this really haunted me at the time. And so it was at that time that we really started to infuse our program with a lot of professional development opportunities for our students. We just realized that a lot of our students didn't understand the importance of doing an internship. They didn't have a network. They didn't know how to network. They didn't know how to start to make some of those professional connections. So we just, from the get-go, started to really make that a huge component of our program. So on the professional development side of things, we've done a lot in recent years in terms of building out corporate partnerships. A lot of companies in Utah and Idaho, they do different events at their companies, whether that's informational interviews or networking events or those different types of opportunities. And we've also recently received some grants to provide stipends for students who are completing internships so that they don't have to do unpaid internships, but that they can still receive a little bit of financial support through their internships as well. So when it comes to financial assistance, we provide, we're a last-in scholarship. So after a student receives their financial aid and then any other scholarships that they're receiving, we typically can cover the remaining balance of that student's tuition. And so it varies from student to student. We also do provide funding for books, as well as a laptop for a student while they're in our program. And then as we get to know our students and understand their specific needs, there are other areas that we can support them with financially, and whether that might be citizenship or a dental emergency or mental health resources, therapy, eyeglasses, basically anything that we can kind of link back to their educational success.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That's very helpful. So you touched on this a little bit in terms of providing funding for the scholarship, but specifically in terms of the scholarship itself, how many students receive awards each year? How much is each award? And I know you mentioned it varies a bit, but who is eligible for a scholarship award?
Awesome, great question. So we actually have a fair number of students who are in our program who don't receive any financial assistance because it's already covered by other scholarships, and they just want to be part of One Refugee for the other facets of our program, whether that's the professional development or the academic mentoring. But on average, each year, at least this last year, was about 400 students that we assisted through our program in differing varying levels of financial resources with that. The average for our students is about $2,000 a year that we support them with financially. Now, that doesn't sound like very much. And the reason for that is we really push our students to apply for other scholarships and to apply for financial aid. And so for the half of our students that are at a community college, their tuition's already covered. Especially in Utah and Idaho, that covers community college tuition. So we help just a little bit with maybe some books and a laptop. But then once they transfer onto a four-year institution, whether that's Boise State or the University of Utah, there's going to be a bigger gap in tuition. So that's when we'll start to cover a little bit more of some of that financial cost and try to take away some of that burden from students so that they can actually focus on not only their grades and doing well in school, but they can also have the freedom to be able to focus on some of that professional development, some of those opportunities as well.
Great. Okay. And then my next question is, how is the program funded, and how is this funding sustained?
Absolutely. So the main bulk of our funding comes from our generous donors, Roger and Sarah Boyer. So it's a family foundation, and they cover most of the costs for the One Refugee program. We do receive other funding and grants. We've received funding from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, some other private foundations and organizations, as well as some companies also donate to us. So those are kind of the main, it's mostly private foundations and individuals that donate to the One Refugee program. So the Boyers have given their long-term commitment to the backbone of One Refugee. And so in terms of sustainability, they've given their long-term commitment to make sure that One Refugee continues forward.
Okay, great. And then I'm wondering, who are your organization's partners in terms of government agencies, NGOs, universities? And then a second part to the question is, what is your relationship with these partners and how do they support your work?
Awesome. Well, number one is the schools. We couldn't do what we do without the colleges and universities. So in each school, we have a lot of different contacts that we work with in various different offices across the campus. So the finance department helps us a ton. We have great relationships with the bookstore, with the academic advising office, with the career services offices, the multicultural and diversity offices. And so the colleges and the universities have been just incredible to work with, and the resources there are robust and amazing. And so that's been, obviously they're our biggest partner in terms of ensuring that our students are able to move forward and be successful. On top of that, we also have great partnerships with companies and organizations throughout our two states. And so it's been incredible to see different companies step forward and say, hey, we want to provide internships for students, or they just want to financially support some of our students. And then just wanting to provide a community that feels inclusive so the students can start to develop professionally and gain some of those opportunities. So those are the two big ones. We also partner with other, refugee service providers throughout the states on different avenues like citizenship. We also have Target provides free eyeglasses for our students. And so we just have lots of different partners that we work with in different areas to ensure that our students can be successful. So yeah, we couldn't do it without our partners for sure.
Well, that's awesome. It's really interesting that Target is willing to provide those services. I'm wondering, do you have more state-specific partnerships depending on whether it's Utah or Idaho that you're working with?
Definitely. Yeah. So the Target partnership, for whatever reason, it depends on the store. So in Utah, it has worked for us, but in Idaho, it hasn't. So it just totally depends. And, we thought going into it, oh, Utah and Idaho, they're so similar and the differences have been very distinct. And so I think that's a question a little bit later on. But yeah, so that's been just a really interesting experience for us. So the other really amazing thing has been the mental health service providers that have come forward to provide either pro bono or discounted therapy for some of our students. So yeah, there have been just a ton of people in the community that have stepped forward and wanted to provide support. It's been amazing.
Great. Okay. Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question. So as the program serves student populations in both Utah and Idaho, could you please describe any challenges associated with operating across states?
Yeah. So like I already mentioned, the assumption that things will be similar was definitely not a correct assumption. And so, I think Utah and Idaho are similar in a lot of ways, but then there are also some distinct differences. And that became really clear. Danny was part of our first cohort of students in Idaho. So we started a couple of years ago with just 20 students to kind of slowly expand up into Idaho. So Danny was one of those first students. And one of the things that became really clear to me right off the bat was in Utah, there are more government support services. for individuals from a refugee background. So many of our students are, they're working, and especially students who are on their own have to work 2 or 3 jobs, to kind of make ends meet. But individuals who maybe come from a larger family, there's a lot of government assistance there. They're not having to work the long hours, and they're able to kind of focus on their studies a little bit more. That's not the case in Idaho. I don't know that I've met a student in Idaho that isn't working at least full time, trying to make ends meet, because there's just not the same level of government resources for those families. Now, there's pros and cons to both of those. We have students in Utah that haven't worked ever, and their parents don't want them to work because they don't want to lose their government benefits. And so we kind of butt up against that in trying to help those students gain some professional experience so that they can be hireable once they graduate. And so it's kind of a two-edged sword when you kind of look at both different scenarios in different states. The resources available in both states have also been a distinct difference, just in terms of, we've been able to really build up mental health resources in Utah, but that's been a little bit of a struggle in Idaho. Yet on the professional development side of things, companies have really stepped forward in Idaho, and we have great partnerships with organizations like Global Talent that have helped us kind of navigate that. And so it just depends from state to state. And then even within the states, it depends on the school they're at. Is it a more rural school versus a more urban school? So for instance, we have students at the College of Southern Idaho in Twin Falls, which is a lot more rural of a setting, and there's only a community college there. So students, to go on and get their bachelor's degree, have to leave their hometown and go a couple hours to try to get a 4-year degree, which can kind of be a struggle for a lot of those students. And then there just aren't as many job opportunities in some of those rural areas. And so it just depends. It varies across state lines, but then it also varies from city to city and town to town within those 2 states. So.
Okay, great. Well, that's very helpful. And then my last question is, what key recommendations from your program can you share with us that would benefit the scholarship portion of our public education campaign?
Fantastic. I've thought a lot about this question. So, number 1 is that scholarships are the easiest piece. And money is always helpful. But money without adequate support is not going to be as beneficial as we want it to be. So handing a student a scholarship and saying, here you go, that's great, that can help some students. But the majority of students, at least that I've worked with, there needs to be adequate support and structure there to continue to support a student in every other facet of their education journey. Money's not going to be enough. And so I think a lot of people talk about money and they talk about scholarships because it's kind of the easiest thing to do. And I guess that would be my suggestion, is to say, if there are going to be scholarships, it needs to be tied with adequate mentoring and support so that students, just aren't left high and dry. An example of that, and I won't name the school because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but we have a school that has started to provide some scholarships for students from a refugee background, which is an incredible opportunity. And frankly, for us, it's awesome because it's just more financial resources for those students. But there isn't the necessary mentoring for those students. And so we've had to step in and kind of provide a lot of that support. So, because even though a scholarship is there, the students are going to really struggle, especially as brand new college students, without that type of mentoring and support. The one-on-one, the research shows one-on-one connection and mentoring will make the biggest difference. So money's just a small portion of that. So I wrote down some other notes here. So the other piece is to ensure that there is a professional development component to all of this. It's one thing for students to be able to get a 4.0. I've had students get 4.0s and they can't get a job to save their lives once they graduate. And it's just because, it's not that they're not I mean, they're incredibly intelligent. They just haven't had the, like I said, the coaching to be able to know where do they need to go to get that support, and who do they need to talk to, and how do I begin to expand in my network. And that's why I invited Danny and Emma on here today, because these two are just insane rock stars when it comes to professional development and the connections that they've been able to make in a super short period of time. What they've been able to accomplish is just amazing. So I'm going to be quiet here in just a second so we can get to the real gold of this conversation. But now the other thing I wanted to just kind of mention is when it comes to scholarships that are based out of the school, my experience, and this is just my experience, but my experience has been that schools often are providing scholarships out of a desire for diversity, but their focus isn't necessary. Their focus is the school, and their focus isn't necessarily the students. And that has been hard for me to see, that students are getting admitted into schools at higher numbers because the school wants more diversity, but not because they actually want to help the students. Now, these are good people, they do want to help, but I'm saying the focus is different. If the focus is on diversity, then the students aren't going to be able to be the focus and aren't going to be able to get the resources and the support that they need. That's why I love One Refugee, because we stand independent of any of the schools, and we're able to be student focused and really look at the needs of the students and then plug them into the resources on campus that can be helpful for them. So we're kind of like pseudo parents in some ways, because a lot of our students don't have parents that are walking them through this process, and everybody needs a mentor or a parent to really look at them first over the school. So those are some of my thoughts about that. So another thing I just really wanted to mention was we just recently did a baseline survey with all of our students and found that 1/3 of our total of the students that are in our program don't feel like they belong on campus. So that was really eye-opening to us. We probably should have already known that, but even some of our students that are just excelling and doing really well in school still don't feel like they necessarily belong on campus. Part of that is that they're working just insane hours, and so they're not able to be on campus very much. So, some students have the freedom to be able to live on campus and they're not having to work. And so they're able to be parts of tons of clubs. But our students, they just, they're having to work, they're commuting into school, they're having, there's just so many pressures and burdens upon them. And then to add to that they don't look like other students, they don't feel like they necessarily belong. So it's all of those pieces and layers that our students are really having to wrestle with, on top of just trying to be a student and trying to be successful. My last point here is there's kind of that saying that says you can either prepare the road for the child or you can prepare the child for the road. And at One Refugee, we've taken the decision to prepare the child for the road. And so, we can go out and advocate, and we do. We go out and we advocate for our students. We're building pathways for them. But our main focus is preparing our students for the road ahead of them and really investing in our students and our programs so that they feel empowered to be able to move forward, make the connections they need to, and accomplish their goals and their dreams. So there you go. You can tell that I'm slightly passionate about this work. But anyways, so yeah, I think it's incredible what you guys are doing, and can't wait to hear from Danny and Emma.
Well, great. Thank you so much. So those were all really helpful and insightful points. So thank you so much, Raymond. Those are all the questions I had for you specifically. So we can go ahead and move on to questions for Emma and Danny. And I'm just going to pose a question, and then both of you can give your individual responses if that works. So my first question is, could you please explain your journey in gaining support from One Refugee? How did you learn about the program? And either of you can start. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I go first. Mm-hmm. I would say my journey to first meeting One Refugee was actually I did not have it on my radar. So I came here as a refugee, and I came here with my young brother. At that time, I had no other support except having to take care of my brother and making sure that where he was with the foster family, he was doing well. And I had a high school degree, high school diploma from home, but it was not very easy for me to like transition it to the American system. I didn't know how to just go about everything. So I just went online, and I started looking up online like some scholarships or anything out there to help refugees. There was nothing out there to help refugees until I think later on in 2014, when I came across an advisor at Salt Lake Community College and mentioned that there was one refugee at that time. It was called Refugee Initiative Education, I believe. The journey was very interesting because when I interacted first with Raymon and Amy Wiley at that time, it was very different from all the interactions that I had already come across. It was peaceful. Not only that, they did mention that they were going to take away some stress from me because I didn't have parents, I didn't have friends, and I didn't know anyone. But they were willing to just take that extra step to tell me and give me a peace of mind that, yes, the journey is really hard right now, and it's going to be really hard in the future, but we're going to take away some stress. And from there, I will tell you, I did graduate with my associate's degree at the Salt Lake Community College with debt-free. I had no debt. They not only were able to help me navigate along the system and getting all the scholarships I needed, they were able to provide me with the assistance that I also personally needed. It was a beautiful journey. I transferred over at the University of Utah. The journey continued. And not only that, because I had the peace of mind and I knew I had a support besides the University of Utah, where I did not at any point of time feel like I was welcomed. Because I had the support, I was able to run a student organization called Refugees in Action that was established by some of my other peers who did the same thing. Not only that, I felt so comfortable to say, you know what? Yes, we do have these opportunities for us to use. Why not use it for other people? So I went on and I created Inclusivity in Business, a space where people like myself, untraditional students, can come back to school and say, I don't belong here and here, but maybe I could try something where I could learn to communicate with other people, because it's both ways. Also, just on the same topic, I think it does require some effort. And if we create a space, then both parties could, easily participate and eliminate this sense of unbelongingness. So that's what has actually happened in my life with One Refugee. And all I have to say, it's a beautiful journey, and it's something that I never foresee at any point of time coming to the United States.
Wow. Okay. I think we should just, end the meeting, because I don't know what else to say, because, thank you so much, Emma. My journey is a little bit different and kind of similar to Emma's. I came to the United States, and my only dream and my only goal was to become a professional soccer player. And then I went to try out in LA Galaxy, and then I had a very bad injury. It was kind of career-ending injury. I tore my muscle, and then I needed surgery, and then the complications from there, I didn't want to do the surgery, and then I was like, okay, let me just go back to school, and try another route. And then here I came, I joined college. I didn't go to school, high school here, so I came with my high school diploma from back home, just like Emma. And then luckily I have an uncle who is very educated. He works in Europe, and that's where he lives. And then he just advised me to kind of, when I go to school, I decide to go to school, I should choose a major that will like be sustainable, will give me job after I graduate. Don't just go to school because like I have a degree that after I graduate I don't have a job. So I chose civil engineering because we cannot, so like civil engineering is part of our daily life where we need new roads every day. We need either to maintain them or new roads or new developments or stuff like that. So I chose engineering, and then I went in without knowing anything in the background. I didn't have any advisor. I didn't have anybody to guide me. So, and how I knew about the One Refugee program is I was in one of the community events, and then I met Tara. She's the Idaho Office of Refugee director, and she mentioned about the program, and she said, the Utah people are thinking about expanding the program to Idaho, and I was like, Danielle would like you to be one of the beneficiaries of this program, and I was like, oh, that would be like a life changer for me, because it's really hard to, like Emma said, it's really hard for people like us because we have to work full time to be able to pay our bills on the side. At the same time, you have to go to school, and then so it's like that's why you see most people they choose one of the other or the other because you can't do both. Like working full time and school is like something that it's not a really easy task to do. So yeah, so and then as soon as she gave me her contacts, I emailed her within the next few hours, and she got back to me, and then I was like, I will apply to this. And then when I was applying, I just expanded to everybody I knew. I'm like, dude, there's this opportunity, let's take advantage of it. And then yeah, so Raymond and Emmy reached out to me, and we had interview questions, and from there it was like life changing for me. Like literally, I tell this to Raymond every time I talk to him. Like they saved my life in terms of you don't appreciate this scholarship until you graduate or you start like your internship process and professional mentorship and like getting into a professional job. You don't appreciate that until you get there, and oh man, that without that scholarship I don't know where I'll be. So that was my journey, and I don't know, every time I have an opportunity, I'll thank you, Raymond and One Refugee, for what you've done to me and how you have impacted my life and where I am today. I couldn't be where I am today without you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Danny and Emma, for those incredible journeys. I really appreciate hearing that. So my second question is, what aspects of the program have been particularly helpful for you?
I would say professional development has been a great one for me. As Raymond mentioned, scholarship is great. It does take away some weight when it comes just to the financial burden. But having a community where I can reflect my future goals with, it's just unbelievable, refreshing. And not only refreshing, it gives me different perspectives. Do I really want to do this? Do I feel like this is a great journey for me? And I found myself a couple of times, not only with my job manager, at that time when I was working, where she would try to ask me, hey, what do you want to do, in the job position you're doing? Do you want to explore other things? I had no idea that I could do that. All I knew was I'm going to be in a situation which is in the United States where I have to be humble and be grateful with anything that I'm provided. So I came with a content spirit. So at any point of time in my job, I was like, whatever they give me, I'm okay with it. But having multiple perspective to bounce with within One Refugee, that was just mind-blowing. And it let me explore more. Not only that, I was able to understand what my superpowers barriers were when it came to like, professional, just my professional branding, like how I handled things and how I felt about handling certain things. So professional development is definitely one of the biggest things that I have learned from One Refugee.
Well, for me, it's been the whole package they provide, like literally the whole package. And I would say tuition-wise, that's it's like sometimes I just can't explain how helpful it is. And I know Emma can say this because she's working now, and how that impacts like whatever help you got, how that impacts when you start thinking about buying a house and like buying a new car with not having so much loans to pay and stuff, student loans to pay and stuff like that. So for me, like the tuition, books, oh my God, like a civil engineer, those books are really super expensive, and they like fully covered it, they fully covered it. I didn't have to worry about books. And just knowing that, okay, I have these people supporting me here. I don't have to take this much loan, because sometimes to like navigate, so I don't have to work full time, so I would like just get as many loans, as much loans as I could, before I got a scholarship. And now getting that scholarship, I didn't have to do, to get much loans to buy books or all that. So, because they're covering the books. So now I only have to focus on like, covering rent for 3 months, and then worry about the other stuff and work part-time to cover my other expenses. So that's one aspect of it. And then I've covered the books. And then the other thing was lunch. Oh my God. They provided me lunch, and like within classes, sometimes in a rush hour, you try to rush to the next class and you don't have time, and you don't want to spend your money. If you don't have the extra money they gave you, it's like you're just gonna starve and wait until you go home to eat. But now it's like they have that money in your card, and you can just go by, and then grab something, go to the next class. So that's like amazing. Like, those are like some life-changing stuff that happened to me after I got this. And then the mentorship stuff. Like the mentorship is a life changer, and it's like one of my recommendations to all the the beneficiaries who are currently, because that's a huge thing when it comes to learning about professionalism, because professional and school, they're two different things. Literally, they're two different things, and then just being like groomed, and then like making sure you're getting your interview training. You're meeting with the professionals and chatting with them, expanding your network through that way. And I've been one of the beneficiaries for that. I remember my internship with Ada County Highway District, and without I wouldn't get that internship if I did it on my own, or if somebody else helped me, but through One Refugee's partners, Global Talents, they'll help me. Literally, we sat down and we would like do mock interviews with them, literally until I perfected it, until I became good at it. Literally, I would come back. They told me, okay, let's do it again. They like literally spent time to make sure I got it right. And every time I went to interviews, and whatever interviews I've done, I've done 3 interviews, and literally I've got positive responses at all of my interviews. And I've been at least considered, people have reached out to me and tell me, we chose this guy, but you're one of our best candidates, and we'll think about you in the future. Stuff like that. And my network has really expanded, and then it was really easy for me to find a job now where I am today. And through that, and just building me professionally, it's like, I can't explain. Sometimes I run out of words to explain how One Refugee has like impacted my life to this day. And I want to thank you again, Raymond. I want to thank you again. And always, every time I have an opportunity to thank you, I'll thank you and everybody who has helped me to where I am today.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, that was beautiful, Danny. It is very selfish of me not to even consider all the other things which I'm gonna say in this moment. So when I came here, as I mentioned, I had no one at any point of time. I had to text Raymond whenever I needed anything, and Raymond will respond. And they're very fast at responding. Not only that, I went back to the University of Utah, transferring from Salt Lake to University of Utah, and I had an accommodation assistant from one refugee. That took away stress from me. Like, I never thought at one point of time an organization will handle me as a child. Like, it's just overwhelming, and like beauty overwhelming. And I'm bringing it up to say, yes, besides professional development, there were many other things that they have done that is not even equivalent to what other organizations do. Like, based on the researches I have done, no organization out there provide this love that they provide to us. Accommodation, lunch, they check on us, they do video calling on us. Not only that, we have health help, as Raymond mentioned. I've had my mental therapist help me throughout my college time. Where I needed someone to talk to, I had someone right there for 3 years of my education time. They were there. So yeah, I came back and say, you know what? Professional, yes, it is a great thing, but they did do an amount, like, I can't even express it.
Exactly. Yeah, and by the way, Raymond, that one-on-one like you do, it's a life changing. Just so you know, that one-on-one
Yes.
is just reaching your hand and like checking on us, even though we're not part of the program anymore. Just checking on us. That's like, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. It means
Yes.
a lot to us.
Thank you both so much. It's so interesting to hear this holistic and kind of sustainable approach that One Refugee takes that I think is very unique. So, my next question is, having experienced the challenges of acquiring educational support, what recommendations do you have for the U.S. university community to advocate for refugee scholarships and education pathways on their own campuses? And by university community, that could mean college presidents, chancellors, admissions officers, student allies, and even high school guidance counselors.
I will go again, if that's okay, Danny.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that, I really had to think through on that. It's a really hard question. I think based on just my experiences, having a human touch and having a clear objective. Okay, this is where sometimes I have to come back and say, okay, how would I put this in a way that okay, so I would say, because sometimes I have to interpret in my head and try to clarify things the way it sounds, but I would say yes, having a human touch is one thing that would definitely help a lot of people and peers of my background. Actually putting the time, the research, and money to find the needs of the individuals that they're trying to reach out, in this case, the refugees students. So that would be my perspective. And from there, we can always expand on how the human touch looks like. We've all talked about it, especially Danny and I, just having someone who is right there to like talk to, the one-on-one conversation, checking in and things like that. That could easily be implemented in colleges. That could also be easily implemented in clubs, such as I tried doing with the inclusivity in business. I created an opportunity for anyone to come in and learn anything about someone else who's different through the help of the mentors that we have on campuses and people who are actually willing to help refugees rather than just create a number in spreadsheet. That's where I come back again saying just having a clear vision when it comes to dealing with refugees in actions or refugee students.
Well, for me, it's gonna go through. So I'll start with the professors, and then refugee students themselves, and then the other programs. So when I start with refugee students themselves, we need to do a better job in terms of like reaching out, not being scared to ask questions. And just if you get stuck, just find somebody, your professor or your peers, that you met in class. Ask them something. Where can I get this? Because literally, this was my experience. I was really scared. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing my freshman year. I didn't have any advice. I didn't have anybody to guide me. So I was just there. I didn't know I had a student advisor. Literally, this is fact. I didn't know I have a student advisor until my sophomore year. Literally, I never met my student advisor until sophomore year. I was just there moving around. And I didn't know I could get one-on-one tutoring, I didn't know I could get one-on-one tutoring on campus. I didn't know outside class. I didn't know I could have that. And then so it's like us students who needs to find that. And also it's like the other thing. So with the universities, I think during orientations they should put in extra effort or like in helping students who English is not their first language, because most of us is like we don't have parents who can interpret all these documents, all these papers or during orientation and stuff, so it's just us that we have to depend on ourselves and what we understood about those instructions and stuff, and we end up not knowing most of the stuff. So if let's say you have a 20 or 300 students who are doing orientation, at least have the 5-10 minutes of like asking, refugee students. It can be a different orientation or private for like 10-30 minutes. Just ask them, do you understand? Do you need help? What do you need? It's just that little, hand can be really helpful and can go a long way. And then the other thing is we have that intimidation, and this goes to the professors too in classes, just being, like having an accent and being the only student of color in class, and like you around all like 30 students who, English is their first language, and you may have the right answer, but you're scared to answer, you may have a question, you're scared to speak out because you don't want to, you want to feel embarrassed, or you don't want to feel like, I may say something stupid and, I'll be, everybody will be laughing at me. So it's like with the professors, they need to do a better job in terms of at least scheduling, making sure these students are engaged, like there's one-on-one where you have, one-on-one with teachers. They need to like reach their hands to these students and ask them, are you comfortable in class? Where can I help you and stuff like that. Those little stuff goes a long way, because for us, somebody who English is their first language, he'll get something because that's the language, you get something like that. For us, we have to interpret stuff in the head first before you understand it. So it's like that little extra hand, it can be really helpful, and these students won't feel like they don't belong, and that will get rid of that sense of belonging on campus. Because like if you don't have anybody caring for you, and you're just there, go to class, go do homework, turn in your homework, and nobody's caring, and you're like, like, man, what am I doing here? That's why we see a lot of people have dropped out, and I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm doing here, stuff like that, because they don't feel like, I don't think this is worth it, I don't even belong here, I'd rather go work or do something else than wasting my time here, So those are kind of my submission, but I don't know if, I say it's a long process and it's a work in progress, and I'm confident Raymon is there, and Raymon, I'll keep going back to you, because all of us rely on you and we appreciate everything you do.
Well, those are all really great recommendations. So thank you both for your input. It's definitely something to consider and reflect on, and I'm sure we at SVR will be doing that. So thank you so much. And then my final thing is, I just wanted to give you guys an open platform to go ahead and feel free to share any other aspect of your experiences that you feel would benefit our efforts to build this campaign.
One thing that I have also experienced, this comes to my experience, is when you work with people that you actually want to help. When I say that is like within a campaign, an event, or anything that is going on, you do bring in different perspectives during the process. Each stage of the process that would, realign most of your views when it comes to actually meeting up with what you're going with. And I think that's one thing I like where I'm currently working. This is my first department where we're all Black women. And I've never had an opportunity to work with all Black African women in an organization such as a financial organization. And with that at phase, it's like I'm learning a new phase from working in a community where it's all, diverse. For me, people look very different, and I had to learn how to communicate with them. And now shifting to a place where I'm working with people who have some more similarities to me, it creates a lot of flexibility and a lot of momentum when it comes to how I operate things. And also, I have seen that most of my peers feel more comfortable when they put themselves in situations that are like, okay, we're creating a plan, we're creating an organization, and instead of us just stopping on what we're traditionally aware of or what we have been doing over time, why don't we, within a process, such an event, campaign, bring and introduce different perspective based on the decisions that we make, so that we make sure that what we're actually delivering is actually meeting these people's needs. And that's one thing I've also found through some of the panels I have personally created with other software companies here in Utah, and also just any other organizations that I brought together. Like, it's good to recruit, it's good to have beautiful ideas that want to bring positive change and help refugee students, but it's good to create also situations where we can maintain what we're creating by bringing in different perspective in each stage. That's one thing that I would say.
I don't know if I should raise this on Raymond, but Raymond is something that probably we can talk about is in the future too, even offline here, but it's, and I've been meaning to mention this to you. It's like, she was mentioning in terms of our working environments, we find ourselves like you are just that unique person, and like one colored person with an accent surrounded by all these, professional people, and that intimidation kind of plays with you mentally, and then, so I feel like we should kind of have that, that training, with students who are graduating, have that training into like setting their mindset into like, oh, you belong there, you belong there and you can succeed there, you don't have to be, and then kind of just training them to work with different people with different, backgrounds, and those stuff with those lines, within kind of lines. And because me, that's one of the things that has been affecting me, it's like I'm all of a sudden in this industry, 500 employees, and I'm only colored person. And, sometimes I want to raise my point, but I'm like, I don't think I'm valued here, so it's like just training people, like people who are coming up, and, training when we're doing the professional mentorship, just, preparing them with this, stuff that are coming up. Like, you're going to find yourself in this situation, and this is how you can, succeed in this situation. So that would be kind of my take, which is not separate from the question, but I just wanted to like say that out to Raymond, and probably we can expand on this some other time. Yeah.
Danny, I'm over here. I don't know if you can see it. I'm over here like cheering. So yeah, you can see why One Refugee is successful, because Emma and Danny are two of like my greatest advisors. How many times, Emma, have you sat in my office and talked about big world ideas, right? Like, we're going to change the world, right? So, and then Danny and I over the phone all the time are chatting about these types of things. So exactly. Danny, that is so true when it comes to young professionals. It's the same thing that a lot of our students are feeling on campus, right? It's that a little bit of that imposter syndrome. It's a little bit of like that. And is my point of view really going to be valued the same as everybody else if I come from such a different background and such a different perspective? And so I'd love to talk offline about how we can think about doing some of that training. So the awesome thing is we now have 285 graduates from our program that can now be the ambassadors and the mentors for our students. So sorry, Jordan, for taking so much time, but thanks for giving us a platform.
I appreciate everything you guys said. Those are all the specific questions I had for you. I just want to say thank you all again so much, Danny, Emma, and Raymond. Everything you said has been so helpful. I appreciate you all so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again, Danny and Emma, for taking the time.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.